Good afternoon, pilot teachers and students. Thank you. Sit down. Okay, you will need the worksheet that was distributed earlier on for us to look at the revision of what we have already covered on mapping skills. And also today we are going to look at more work to be covered on calculation of bearing, which is another way of also giving directions. Okay, we look at what we have covered so far by again referring to our worksheet or the handout that was given. And if you look at the worksheet or the handout that was given, the information tells us that when we are giving directions, it is supposed to help us determine the relative location of features. In geography and in our work on mapping skills, we are going to be dealing mainly with what we call topographic maps. And topographic maps are maps that are supposed to show us relief, mainly landform, that is. So when we are looking at, and if we are able to use the topographic maps correctly to find and to describe direction, it will involve three important things. And those three important things will come under the heading on interpreting directions. And they are, one, the points of a compass, of which we looked at yesterday in our lesson, the 16 points of the compass, that is. Number two, it will also involve knowing how to use bearings or give bearings correctly. And number three, also knowing the north points. So far, we have already looked at two, and that is the points of the compass and bearings. But we need to do some more work on calculation of bearings. Looking at the points of the compass, we have already found out that there are 4 cardinal points of the compass, and the 4 cardinal points are the north, south, west, and east. They are referred to as the 4 cardinal points of the compass. But I mentioned that in grade 11 and 12, knowing only the 4 is not enough when we are trying to give directions. We are expected to know the other 12 intermediate compass points. And the 12 intermediate compass points are what falls in between the 4 cardinal points, north, south, west, and east. And those 12 intermediate compass points we looked at yesterday already. We found out that they are the north-northeast direction, the northeast, the east-northeast direction, east-southeast, the southeast direction, that is. Then the south-southwest, the southwest direction, the west-southwest. We also have the west-northwest, the northwest direction, and the north-northwest. Those are the 12 intermediate points of the compass. Altogether, they will give us the 16 points of a compass, the 4 cardinal points plus the 12 intermediate points. And that is what we have done in our lesson yesterday. You also did some activities, and those activities saw you using those 16 points of the compass to give directions. I reminded you that whenever you are giving directions, it's important that, again, we understand where we are starting from and to where we are going, so that we know to where we are supposed to get the direction of. Words like the direction of A to B. We stand at A and we take the direction to B. Or words like the direction of A from B. We stand at B and we take the direction to A. Those words are important because if we don't get those correct, then we might give the wrong directions. Today we are going to move on to looking at a little bit more on bearings, and another way of giving directions is also using bearings. But this time, instead of using the 16 points of the compass, we use degrees because bearings is usually given in degrees. We looked at the 16 points of the compass yesterday, and we also put in the degrees for the 16 points. So if we can quickly recall and revise on that, I mentioned that the north direction is usually 0 degree or 360 degrees, depending on whether we are starting at the north or whether we are finishing back to the north. The east direction, looking at the 4 cardinal points of the compass, the east direction is at 90 degrees. The south direction is at 180. The west direction is at 270. Then we also looked at the intermediate compass points yesterday, and we said the northeast direction, which sits directly between, or it is halfway between 0 and 90, is at 45 degrees. Similarly, the southeast direction is 135 because it sits right between the east and the south. Then we have the northwest direction at 225 degrees. We have the northwest direction at 315 degrees. We did not just use those 8 points, rather we also looked at the east, northeast, the north, northeast, and etc. And if we look at the information that we have on the monitor, what has happened here is that these figures have been rounded off. We left them at the decimals. So here we had 22.5 degrees for the north-northeast direction. We had 67.5 degrees for the east-northeast, and etc. until we came to the north-northwest, which was at 337.5 degrees. What we are looking at here is giving bearings, and bearings is another way of also giving directions. So instead of using the 16 points of the compass, we use bearings to also tell the directions. Today we are going to look at using protractors so that we can accurately give information about the bearings, or when we are asked to calculate bearings. But before we go on to looking at the steps of how we can correctly calculate the bearings, does anyone have any questions with what we have covered already that you would like to ask? Any questions so far? No questions? Maybe later you might have some questions, and if you do have questions, feel free to ask. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to do some activities, and our activities will see us use our protractors to calculate bearings. What we did for the directions, I gave an example on how we should calculate or how we can work out the directions. Similarly, I'm going to go through some of the steps that we need to be reminded of when we are calculating bearings so that we can give our bearings correctly. So here are the steps. You will make note of this later, as these charts will be taken to your classroom for your note taking. Now I'd like you to follow. Step number 1 in calculation of bearings. We must know the starting point, and when we know the starting point, it might be easier for us to at least put a dot to indicate our starting point. So if we are, for example, if we are to find the bearing of A to B, our starting point is A, and we are going to find the bearing of A to B. So it is important, step number 1, know the starting point. Step number 2, once we know the starting point, and for the example given here, it is A to B, then you draw a faint pencil line over the starting points and indicate or put in the 4 cardinal points of the compass. The cardinal points of the compass are the north, south, west, and east. But you put that over the starting point. So I said I wanted to find the bearing of A to B. A is my starting point. I have a dot there to indicate A. I have put in the 4 cardinal points over A. And this will help me be able to estimate and also know whether my bearing is going to be correct or not. You see, if my bearing, if the area that I'm finding the bearing of is between the north and the east, my answer should not be more than 90 degrees. If my answer is found along this area here between maybe north, east, and then south, my answer should not be more than 180. And if my bearings are more than 180, and if I want to find the bearing of C or B, and it's 180, then I know my answer is already wrong. Similarly, if my answer is here, I know that it would be more than 180 but less than 270. So by putting in the 4 cardinal points of the compass, it will help you able to estimate. But here, we are not going to estimate. We'll have to be accurate with giving our answer. So therefore, we need to use our protractors. So here goes step 1, know the starting point. Step 2, I draw a faint pencil lines over the starting point, showing the 4 cardinal points of the compass. Then once I have done that, step number 3, I will draw another line from the starting point to where I am trying to find the bearing of. So in this case, it is from A to B. So I will draw in a line now so that I know that that is the line that I will have to work with to find the bearing. So a straight line from A to B, I draw in. That's step number 3. Once I have done that, I move on to step number 4. I now have a diagram of which from the diagram I can use for the calculation of bearing. Step number 4, I now get my protractor. Make sure that I know how to read the protractor and it is placed correctly. You will see that on the protractors, you can refer to the diagram that you have also because it shows you some of the different terms or words that we are going to use. You'll find that on the protractors, they have numbers from 0 all the way to 180. But there are 2 sets of numbers, one at the top, 0 to 180, and the next lot at the bottom, and it starts from the south here, from 0 all the way back to 180. This point here on the protractor where there is a line, if you look at your protractor, that is called the baseline. There is also a center point which is given on the protractor, and it is this center point that you will need to place over the starting point so that you can correctly get your measurements. I will now place the protractor with the center point right where the starting point is, and that is A. I have already drawn my line here. I place the center point right where A is, making sure that the baseline, which is this part here, making sure that the baseline should be parallel to the north and the south grid line. So you see, this is important. I did this in the beginning so that it will also help me able to calculate the bearings correctly. So I place the center of the protractor on the starting point. I make sure that the baseline is in line with that imaginary grid line which I have constructed over the starting point. And then I should be able to see where that particular line meets together with the protractor. So now that I've done this, this is step number 4. Step number 5 then, I will check to see where the line A and B cuts the protractor. It's this line here. So if I place it there, that's line A and B. Where it cuts or meets the protractor, it's at this point here. Now I am able to read that angle. So it is, according to my information here, 129 degrees. You see, it is more than 90, but it is less than 180. So it would be about correct. So 129 degrees, I'll put that in. I am looking at this angle here, and that is 129 degrees. I have just read the angle by doing that, and I have found that the bearing of A to B is 129 degrees. If the bearing is between 180, that means it's between this point here and that point coming back towards the west now. If the direction, if the bearing is between 180 and 360, then what you will need to use is a secular protractor. I think most of you have seen and you've used secular protractors, or if you do not have the secular protractors, then what you can do is you measure from the south line and you add to 180. And this is how it is done. I know already that if I put my protractor so that the baseline is parallel to the north and the south grid, all the way around to this point is 180. Okay, if, for example, I am trying to find the bearing of A to E, this time E is more than 180. My protractor will only go up as far as 180 if I place it there. But that is not the end of the story. I can still calculate if I don't have a secular protractor. What I do is I simply turn the protractor so that, again, the center can sit there right where the starting point is, and the zero starts from here, from 0 to 180, and I draw in, I must not forget that line from A to E. I draw in this line so that I can use that to calculate the bearing accurately. I'm trying to find the bearing of A to E. I put my protractor again, similar to what I've done on the other side, and then I will measure from 0 to 27. That is about 27 degrees from my measurement. From this point to that point, 27 degrees, but that is not the answer. 27 degrees is not the answer because from this point all the way to here is 180. And from this point only to that point is 27. So I will need to add 27 to 180 to get the whole angle or bearing from A to E. And when I do the additions then, what is 180 plus 27? What will that give me? 207. So the angle all the way from this point to this point is 207 degrees. And that is more than 180, and it's also less than 270, so it's about correct. And this is how we calculate bearing using our protractors. Okay? I'm going to now ask you to do some activities. Following the steps, you can refer to the chart to help you calculate the bearing, and then we'll correct our answers after you complete those activities. The activities are, the first one, you can make note of it. This is now looking at calculation of bearings. What is the bearing of Cavian to Daru? We are using our maps, page 10 and 11, the map of Papua New Guinea, that is. Make note, question 1 or activity 1, what is the bearing of Cavian to Daru? Number 2, what is the bearing of Wewak to Lorengau? Number 3, the bearing of Port Moresby to Lae. Number 4, what is the bearing of Lae to Kainantu? Number 5, bearing of Karkar to Kimbe. Number 4 is Lae to Kainantu, bearing of Lae to Kainantu. And number 5, bearing of Karkar to Kimbe. Okay, those are the 5 activities I'd like you to work on. Please follow the steps use your protractors so that at least we come up with only one answer when we are correcting. Yes. So that you can double check on your answers, you may do that. One 28. So let's check. All right, this is 180. Okay, we don't need that. We just move on to the. Where is your north-south line? Okay, this is 40. Because that's to Daru, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's 48, 49. Okay, 49 plus 180. What does that give? 229. So okay, that's okay. The next one, bearing of Wewak to Loringal, Wewak Bearing off, we were 2 lowering down. Where am I? This one. It's about 68. Okay, that's good. Okay, the next one. Palm to lay. That's 270. So let's check it. What must be to lay? Where is lay? These are the cardinal points. Put in the cardinal points of the compass. Straight up. Okay. Because it's a little variation with that. So it is. This is 175, 76, 176. So you go 176 plus 270. Let's say this is 176, right? We said minus, let's say minus 180, which will give us 4. So that means 360 minus 4. 360 minus 4, which is. Put it off. 360 minus 4, which is 356. Okay. So that would be our answer. Many other ways of working around it. Okay, put it in. I want to get my answer down too. So 356. Okay, the bearing of lay to Kainantu. Let's check. Here we are, lay. Where is Kainantu? We go Cardinal Points. Kainantu. Where can we find you? You are here. And Lay there. We come to Wenganapi. This is here. Is it correct? Yes. Kainantu to Goroka. So it's to that point. You could do something like that and then get charged for. Is that correct? This is 71. Is it 71? It's 90. Cannot be. 90, 100 and. This is point 110, 111. So 180 plus 111. What would it be? That's,
this is 270 here, and you went over 270.
Oh, yes, okay. So it will be 270 plus?
111.
No. Oh. From only this point to that point would be about? If this is 270, so if we're going to go 0 here, that's about 11, 270 plus 11. Okay. What would that give us? 281. Okay. About correct? The last one? Karkar to Kimbe. You do it yourself and then let me check. If you're having problems, anyone having problems with doing their calculation, let me know. I'll come around and help you. Karkar, that's the island, yes.
This one?
Yes. Wait. Let's check properly. Let's check the other maps there to make sure that that's Karkar. Silly way of checking our atlases. Let's find from the index. From the index, what does it say? Papua New Guinea agriculture, Papua New Guinea map, understanding maps. Okay, so that's it. That's the island, yes. Okay. So So this is the one, you're right. Just get the center of it because there's no one point to indicate. Karkar, yep, you got it right. I'll give you 1 more minute and then we'll check on our answers. Oh, no, you use it, you need it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 9, 68. 3, 5, 6. 284. 281. And 1. Oh.
We marked it from here because it doesn't have Karkar on
Okay.
the island. So
You just want to go to what?
Kimbe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is Karkar, obviously, that's correct.
So we marked
So,
it this way.
So 104.
Yep.
You got the answer down? The last one. This is Karkar. This is it, island, Medeng. Just measure maybe to any point on that island, that's fine.
From Karkar.
Yeah, this is it. Medeng.
Kimbe.
That's Long Island, that's Karkar Island, yes. It's not clear there, so we'll indicate. Okay, we'll check. Check the answers. If you had followed the steps, you should be able to come up with your answers correctly. Okay, the first one, we're looking at the bearing of Cavian to Daru. If we look at the bearing of Cavian to Daru, we're looking at Cavian here. Cavian is our starting point. We put our indicator, cardinal points of a compass there, the 4 cardinal points that is. And then we rule a line to Daru so that we are able to work out the bearing. Once we have done that, we use our protractor over that. And we should end up having an answer which is, no, we're not going to call out. We'll have someone to give us the answer. Our friend right in front, what is your answer for the first question? Bearing of Cavian to Daru?
About 230 degrees.
Okay, he's calculated 230 degrees. We happy with 230 degrees? Yes, most students are happy with that. We will accept or take that as our answer, 230 degrees. Okay, good. We'll move on to the next question. Our next question should see us look at the bearing of Wewak to Lorengau. What is the bearing that you have calculated? Answer. The best.
$68 degrees.
Give us the 68 degrees. We agree with the answer, 68 degrees. Yes, definitely that is correct. Good. So for question 2, the answer is 68 degrees. That is from Wewak to Lorengau. As shown here, 68 degrees from this point to that point. Good. That's question 2 done. Question number 3. The bearing of Port Moresby to Ley. Port Moresby to Ley. Cowan? Give us, pass the mic down. Looking at exercise 3 or question 3, what is the answer for the bearing of Port Moresby to Ley? Port Moresby to Ley.
357 degrees.
Okay, we're looking at a bearing of 300 and, did you say 357? Okay, which is 3 degrees less to a full revolution of 360. So if you have 357, you are correct. You can give yourself a tick. 356, you had 356. Okay, I will accept 356, 357. 356 degrees or 357 degrees, you can give yourself a tick for the bearing of Port Moresby to Lae. Bearing of Lae to Kainantu. Lae to Kainantu. That's activity 4.
$291.
291.
291.
291 degrees. We happy with 291? Most of you got 291? Okay. We'll double check and make corrections. Good. 291 we'll accept as our answer for the bearing of Lae to Kainantu. And finally, but not the least, the bearing of Karkar to Kimbe. A lot of students were wondering where Karkar was on that particular map. If you look at the other maps which are for the Medang province, you should be able to work out where Kimbe is. And Anita will tell us the bearing of Karkar to Kimbe.
102.
102 degrees. Okay, Anita has 102 degrees. And maybe some of you might have 103 or 104. You can give yourself a tick also. So our answer for the last one is either 102, we can accept, or I will accept 103 or 104 degrees. That is the bearing of Karkar to Kimbe. Okay, having done the corrections, basically what we have done today is we've looked at how to calculate directions again, but not using the 16 points of a compass. Rather, we are using bearings. You'd also realize that when we use the 16 points of a compass, what happens to places that fall in between the direction north and north-northeast? Which direction will that be? If we find a place falling between the north direction and north-northeast, what direction will that be? It's difficult. We can just assume that if it is closer to north, it becomes north. It's closer to north-northeast, then it is north-northeast. And that was the similar case to Port Moresby to Lae. It is not directly north, but yesterday we gave our direction as north. But today we were accurate because when we are looking at the accurate relative location of places, using bearings would be more accurate than using the 16 points of a compass because it gives you the exact bearing from the north direction. I'll stop here, and your homework is to ensure that if you still have problems with calculation of gradients, not gradients, but bearings, do some more practice using the protractors and maybe find atlases so that you get familiar with that. That will also bring us to the end of our lesson. The charts here will be taken to the classroom so that you can make notes of the points for the calculation of bearing. Okay, class, if you can stand up now. Pilot teachers, today's geography keyword is bearing. Please, could you write down in your checklist? Good afternoon, and thank you, students.